There's a massive misunderstanding of what green hydrogen represents. Huge numbers of people, and we are tending to spend a lot of time talking at these types of conferences these days, think that green hydrogen is one particular thing. We're going to manufacture green hydrogen and we're going to use it as a fuel source. We're going to convert electrons into molecules and we're going to do something with those molecules. But there is an incredible ecosystem that exists around it. There are maybe 30 or 40 very specific types of opportunity that can arise as a consequence of building green ammonia, green hydrogen plants, and now having molecules that can be utilized. So the very obvious ones are, we've talked about the platinum group metals, building batteries that hydrogen fuel cells. Very obvious. We have a massive mining sector. We can build the fuel cells, the green fuel cells, to power some of the massive pieces of mining equipment that we need. We have a very dirty rail system. We can clean that up with hydrogen trains, for example. We have a massive transport and logistics industry. We need different battery sources to power those trucks. Sasol has manufactured its synfuels at Secunda for the past 30 or 40 years. Between Sasol and Eskom, we contribute to something like 80% of the whole continent's carbon emissions. So the ability to clean up those two entities lets the rest of the continent off the hook. We can fundamentally fix the emissions problem in helping those other countries get to their net zero targets just by fixing Sasol and Eskom. And the green ammonia, green hydrogen ecosystem ultimately enables a Sasol to transform itself. The Eskom story is a little bit more complicated. Eskom has got to decommission old coal-fired power stations, but some of those power stations can be transitioned via initially gas and ultimately using green hydrogen as a fuel source. But there is complexity in all of those things, but the possibility sort of all exists. So I think very, very exciting time. So when I said a lot of people, see hydrogen as a single thing, the real passionate belief that I have is that we have an opportunity for South Africa to completely reindustrialize, to start building up our industrial base that we have lost over the last 10 to 15 years. There's a new opportunity. If we, for example, do not clean up our transport and logistics systems, our cold storage systems, we get to a point where in 5 years' time we can no longer export fruit and veg products to our biggest markets in Europe because of the carbon border adjustment mechanisms where the Europeans are going to tax us if we want to bring non-renewable sourced product into their countries. The same thing happens. We have a great manufacturing base where we produce motor vehicles. Those vehicles are being largely exported. It's not enough that we're going to be producing electric vehicles. We've got to produce green electric vehicles, so we need green steel. So the number of opportunities that exist, and if we can start to get the momentum going, we really are very well positioned to actually make that happen. What I really believe is we need one massive catalytic project. We have one, it's called the Hive Green Ammonia project down in Coca. If that project can go ahead, it's a circa $5 billion initial piece of investment, but it's perfectly positioned. It has desalinated water, it has potentially the green electrons that are needed to power up the plant, and it could be the catalytic piece of the creation of a green hydrogen valley where all infrastructure is concentrated in one area so that everybody who has a desire to play in this ecosystem can come and start to operate there. The principle is just really to have shared infrastructure. So instead of somebody wanting to build a plant or build plants in 5 different locations around the country where in each instance they're going to have to bring in the water infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, the power infrastructure, etc., trying to create hubs almost like industrial development zones, I think makes a huge amount of sense. We are on the cusp of a massive liberalization of the energy sector. The progress that has been made on our creating incredible new opportunities, and the biggest of those opportunities is the building of clean renewable energy plants, partly led by the government but massively being developed by the private sector as well at the moment. So the consequence of those new green electrons that are arriving at an incredible pace of knots, and just maybe to give some context, over the past 15 years, when government started with the renewable energy IPP procurement process, we've built something like 140 projects spanning South Africa from the Northern Cape right through to Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Mpumalanga. We've built these projects. We've put about 8 gigs of renewable energy onto the grid. 8 gigs of clean renewable energy. As a result of the liberalisation, which probably started just over a year and a half ago, where the President allowed private sector parties to start developing their own projects, we have got over 12 gigabytes of projects under development right now. So that's 50% higher than what we've procured over the last 50 years. And over and above that, we have a net zero target. The country has committed through our Paris Accords. We have committed to building another 30 gigs on top of that, on top of what is already under development by 2030. That's an incredible amount of new power generation. But the trick is, of course, we have to now find ways to use that. And it sounds a little bit ironic given the load shedding, but truly the amount of capacity that we are going to build needs to go somewhere. And one of the very, very obvious opportunities that then arises as a result of this renewable program is we have the ability to become a leading player in the green hydrogen space on the continent. We have an incredible endowment of land. We have an incredible endowment of good wind and good sunlight. We have one of the best endowments of platinum group minerals in the world. And so really we have a lot of things going for the country in terms of being able to create a reindustrialisation of South Africa into this transitioning energy world where we swap dirty, high carbon electrons for greener electrons. So had we not had this runway of renewable energy, it would be much harder to transition into a new world. We have proven through the REIPP program run by government that we can produce electrons marginally more expensively than the Middle East, but certainly more cheaply than anywhere in Europe, virtually anywhere in the United States, etc. So we really are positioned to be able to be a low-cost producer of things like green ammonia, and then following on from green ammonia, green hydrogen. We also have a legacy of companies, steel manufacturing companies, people who have produced various types of battery technology, chemicals, etc. We have one of the biggest producers of synthetic fuels in the world sitting in Sasol, and the ability to now transition and to be able to use green electrons to convert those relatively dirty plants into our energy transition is quite phenomenal. So it really is an exciting time. The challenge, of course, is that with all these good intentions in the world, we still need to have government on board. We need government to be taking care of a lot of things that the private sector will not be able to do. I'm a banker. Inherently, we look at the projects and we say, do these make economic sense? Are we going to be able to finance these? Will there be a buyer for the product at the right price? And therefore, can we finance it? But behind that, we are going to be transitioning. We're going to be shifting jobs from coal-rich areas through our Just Energy Transition Plan to places in the Eastern Cape where maybe we're going to be producing green steel, green motor vehicles, green electric vehicles, green ammonia for chemical production or for fertilizers. But can we do it in a fair and just way, number one? But then secondly, as we transition, do we have the right skills? In the production of the 140 current plants that have been built, as part of government's requirements when developers were bidding for these projects, there was a very big socio-economic compact, and there were certain obligations. So we have created lots of engineering jobs. We've created, one company alone has created hundreds and hundreds of skilled electrical engineers who are working on their projects in South Africa.